Hi all, it's Desert Rose, welcome back, and I'm here to talk to you about Joseph and around the famine stuff, what happened back then. So we'll start off with the Pharaoh's dreams. This is Genesis 41. When 2 full years had passed, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile, when out of the river came up 7 cows, sleek and fat, and they grazed among the reeds. After them 7 other cows, ugly and gaunt, came up out of the Nile and stood beside those on the river bank. And the cows that were ugly and gaunt ate up the 7 sleek, fat cows. Then the Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep again and had a second dream. 7 heads of grain, healthy and good, were growing on a single stalk. After them 7 other heads of grain sprouted, thin and scorched by the east wind. And the thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 healthy full heads. Then Pharaoh woke up. It had been a dream. So God was showing Pharaoh what was about to happen, but of course Pharaoh didn't understand. And so, then you know how it goes. Joseph got let out of prison. He got to interpret what the dreams were. And, then he got to be like a prime minister. He got in charge to be with the food. He made sure everyone bought it all in and made sure, that it was all kept accounted for. I think at one stage it got so much he sort of gave up on it, the accounting for it. But he did what God told him to do, in a way. He knew how to deal with it because God gave them the translations to the dream. And God gave him the idea of how to deal with it. So God put him in a high position because Joseph trusted God. It's all about trust with God. But there was like a famine, obviously, and this famine pretty much destroyed Egypt. But God was kind enough to make sure that they wouldn't just all die from it. And God helps lots of people, even if they're not believing in Him. He will make sure that they have the food. And that's why He put a man of, that is following Him in charge, to make sure everything went to plan. And so, Joseph decided how this would play out. And, the famine, after these 7 years of good stuff, Joseph had already put aside all of the grain and everything to the side and made sure that they were ready for the famine. Like he was really planning ahead. Like God in general plans ahead, because He knows what's going to come. He knows what the enemy's tricks are. He knows what's the enemy going to do. Like He knew that COVID was going to come, so He planned ahead. And we've had food shortages on the shelves because of COVID and all that sort of stuff. But God planned ahead. He was making sure that He made sure, anyway, within like where I am in New Zealand, He still made sure everyone had their food. Our Prime Minister said there was still enough food for everyone. We weren't completely in lack. And God made sure of that. And this is what he was doing in Egypt as well. For His example, He shows that He still takes care of people even in the hard times. He will make sure that you are looked after when it's a really difficult time. Like, I hear there's supposed to be a famine that's coming up or starting or something, and through other prophets. And yes, it is noticeable that shelves are starting to get empty, but that could be sort of the COVID stuff still happening and we haven't quite hit the famine. I'm not sure. But God's gonna always take care of you. Famine or not, doesn't matter the situation, God will take care of you. And within the famine in Egypt, he had the storehouses overflowing, so there was always enough for people within Egypt, within the outskirts of Egypt. You know, everyone would hear about how there was food in Egypt, so they would come and trade with, you know, animals or whatever they've got, and sometimes they'd have some money. Joseph would take anything and trade. And God will take you in trade, basically. If you follow him and you give him your everything, God will look after you in return and give you everything that you need. So you just got to trust in God. Trust that he knows how to look after you and protect you in any situation, whether it's a famine or a natural disaster or anything that just happens in your everyday life. God's got the provisions to take care of you. And this is why he uses the Bible. He's got these examples of real life situations to show you what he can do for you personally. You may be in and out of trials and you feel like you're a bit lost or a bit stuck on things. But God's got your back. He's going to make sure that you've got what you need. He's still going to help you tick along. Make sure you've got food, water, clothing. Yes, I know there's people homeless, but he's still got something for you, even if you're in your car. God's always got it under control. He knows what he's doing. He's prepared. Even if we can't see what he's prepared, he's always prepared. Just like in Egypt, he had everyone prepare and have Joseph control the situation to make sure that it was all going to run smoothly, because he was going to look after everyone in the 7 years of famine. And he will do the same for you. It may not be a famine, it may be anything, but God's got it under control, and he wants you to know that he has it under control. Because even though, you know, people started to struggle after a while to pay for the food that Joseph had in the storehouses, the grain, he allowed Joseph to just do what he needed to be able to provide for these people, whether it was just to give it to them. Just like with his family, he kind of returned the money. But that's because he wanted his family to come and live with him in Egypt, so he could keep an eye on them and have that protection for them and make sure that everything is there, because he knew sort of his father was going to die soon. But that's what God will do for you. He might even have to shift you at some point in order to protect you. It doesn't matter what it is. God will do what he needs to in order to look after you, in order to protect you. And if that's to shift you, if that's just to remove people, if that's to just take anything out of your life and swap it for something else. It doesn't matter. God will do it in order to protect you, and obviously as well give him that glory. Because at the end of the day, God's going to get that glory no matter what. And he will show that to people, that he did this for you, for instance, a thing that you're going through. And then he turned it all around. And then God gets the glory. And God might get people to come to him in that way as well. But he's always going to turn things around. When there's hard times ahead, he'll make sure you have the provisions. You could freak out, you could stress out, you could have anxiety. But God doesn't. God's always level-headed. He knows the game plan. He knows what he's doing. He's planned it out. He's going to fulfill his plan. You just got to trust him. And yes, I know we're human, and that can happen, especially when it feels like we don't know where we're going in a situation or where we're headed. But God does. He's always going to lead us. He's always going to take our hand and lead us, just like he did with Joseph in Egypt. He said, do this for me and I'll do this for all the other people. You make sure that the storehouse is full. You fulfill your role and I will fulfill mine. Meaning mine is in God. But God's always got it under control. And if he tells you to do something, it might be for the greater good at the end of the day. Just like Joseph and how he had to fill those storehouses for the people in the famine. So you just listen to him. And even if you know there's a famine coming up or something that's going to happen, just do as he says. Or if you don't know there's something that's going to happen next, but he's already giving you the instructions, just do as he says, because in the long run, he's doing it to protect you. He's protecting his children always, and he doesn't want anything to happen to you. So trust him. Trust him when it comes to something that he needs you to do. Because in the end, it could help you. It could help millions of people. Just like Joseph, he listened to God. He knew God had a plan. He knew that he had to run with this plan, or God's, because he knew it would help so many people in the end. Yes, he was tested and he was tried and he had to do this and that to prepare for his end goal. But he still listened to God. He still made sure those storehouses were full in order for people to survive through the famine. This is why God puts these stories in the Bible, because things like this could still happen today. And you could be the chosen one in order to help these people get through a hard time. And he shows you all the things that lead up to it. Like Joseph getting thrown in jail, Joseph then running the jail, and then, eventually he gets let out. But it was all these steps that had to be taken in order to get to the position that Joseph was at, to able to help the other people. And you could go through the same thing. Not exactly the same, but you could go through step after step after step to get to the end result. I know there's a lot of people out there that God's preparing right now for a famine, so that they can be able to be like a Joseph, and God will give them the provisions to be able to give to those other people that don't have anything, that have no idea what to do, how to deal with the situation, and they feel like, it's a lost cause. Are they going to die? because they have no food, no water. But God's in the process right now of setting things up. We don't know what God's doing in the spiritual realm. But he's always working, and he says that he always works and never stops. He never takes a break. He never leaves his throne. So he's always preparing us for the next thing. Because there's always something next. I mean, we all know that the COVID stuff has not finished yet. It's not played it all itself out yet. God knows when that's finished, but we don't. So we just have to look to him for instruction to keep moving forward in order to be able to end all of this COVID stuff. And whatever that may be, he will get us to do it. And that will help others as well, and not just ourselves. And it will also carry out God's will. God's will for this earth, God's will for you and for others. So Joseph was a really good example in times of strife within Egypt and the places around Egypt. And you could be that Joseph one day. God could make you a Joseph and look after a lot of people through a situation. There could be a natural disaster, a volcano eruption, a tidal wave. It could be anything. And he could get you to help these people that are just don't know what to do next or how to deal with the situation. So you've always got to be open. You've got to be ready for what God tells you to do next. Because we all know there's always natural disasters. They're not going to end yet. There's always something on the horizon, but God's always got a plan to help deal with that. And we've just got to be ready and willing to do that for him. To fulfill his plan, his destiny sort of thing. Because we've got to help people. We've got to bring people to God, and doing these big things that are showing God's hand, they're going to bring the harvest in. They're going to help people come to God and see what he can do with his mighty hand. So we have to trust that. We have to trust that God knows what he's doing, even if we don't have all the blueprints yet. Because he's just giving us step by step by step. But we still have to trust and go along with it. Because eventually we'll have all those things added up, all those steps, and we would have them all within us and know how to deal with a situation when it arises, because God's already trained us, just like he trained Joseph in Egypt. Joseph didn't know in the beginning that there was going to be a famine. He didn't know that, when his brothers sort of sold him off to a trader and he would end up in Egypt. He didn't know, but he went along with it. He had to. There was no other choice. But he trusted God. He trusted God that he knew what he was doing. And this was all of his training, step by step by step. He had to remove Joseph out of his family. And he might have to do that with you. Remove you out of your family in order to get to the place you need to be. And it's all those steps adding up to that position where Joseph got to. But he didn't know. He didn't know God's blueprints on what's going to happen or how to do it. He just had to take it step by step by step. And it's the same with us, because, we're not as high as God. We're so below. Only God knows all the blueprints to everything. But he'll give us the steps when we need it in order to make that sort of happen in order to complete His will, He will give us those steps. And He won't give us more than what we can handle. If we had the whole blueprints all at once, we probably couldn't handle it. It would be overwhelming. Especially if it's growing our spirit at the same time. Our spirit probably wouldn't be able to handle a big blow like that. Just, here, do all this right now sort of thing. God's not like that. He will do it step by step and help you grow as each step is taken. So we just have to trust Him. And if we're a Joseph, we've got to trust the steps that God puts us through in order to help other people. So keep trusting in God. Keep believing in Him for what He needs to do. And just be available for whenever God needs you. Alright, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this, like, share and subscribe. I am still available for free prophetic words. If you like to sow into this or lead to sow into this channel, link is in description. And we'll see you next time. Bye.